A widower tried to erase the traces of the past by carving wood in silence. A woman arrived at a door in the snow, 3 children in her arms. She didn't speak. She just looked, and that look changed all their lives forever. But no one knew that this little cabin would become a courtroom, a battlefield, and finally a home. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video, because what you hear here isn't just a story, it's the sound of real change. Chapter 1. A Voice Out of the Silence. Days at Daniel Hartman's house were all the same. He woke up to gray light in the mornings, spent his afternoons fixing floorboards carved out of silence, and in the evenings, he would quietly sit by the crackling stove. Everything looked like it was in order, but inside, nothing was really settled. It had been 2 winters since his wife Elena died. The emptiness inside the house still echoed with her laughter, but now, not even an echo remained. There used to be roses in the garden. Now, nothing moved except the wind among the dry branches. That day started just like the others. Outside, snow was falling in a thin but stubborn layer, and Daniel was leaning over his table, carving pieces of wood. In his hand was a block of pine, just barely starting to take shape, maybe a fox, or maybe just something time was carving out. Just like life, you never knew what it was going to turn into. But then, that sound came. 1, 2, 3. Knocks on the door. Was it the wind? A tree? Or a person? The 4th knock was light, but certain. Daniel stood up from his chair, moving with the caution of habit. He didn't take his shotgun, not yet. He walked to the door, slowly pulled back the heavy bolt, and opened it. Outside, standing almost like a silhouette in the snow, was a woman. Her coat was old, the hem covered in ice. Her hair was wet, her hands were cracked. But her eyes hadn't lost whatever you call hope. Behind her, 3 children wrapped in a blanket almost the same height, one clinging to their mother like she was scared of the others. One of them, a blonde girl, was clutching a worn-out rag doll tightly in her hand. When they made eye contact, Daniel didn't say a word or ask any questions. He just stepped back. The woman guided the children inside without a word. There was exhaustion in her steps, but a determination that wouldn't give in. As she came in, she quietly said, "Thank you," maybe just with her lips, not her voice. They sat by the stove. The children were shivering but didn't cry. It was like they were already past being scared. Daniel quietly put another log on the fire, sparks painting the ceiling. No one spoke for a while. Then the woman whispered, her lips trembling, "My name is Anna. These are my children, Lucas, Emil, and Sophie." Daniel nodded. "Did you get stranded?" "No," Anna said, not looking away. "I ran away." Those 2 words burned inside Daniel as much as the flames in the stove. But he didn't ask anything. "Get your clothes dry. I'll make you some soup," he said. The woman bowed her head in thanks. The kids seemed to sink even deeper into their blankets at those words. Anna, before sitting down, went to the stove and gently ran her hands through her children's wet hair. Daniel went to the kitchen. He cut some potatoes and carrots into a simple bone broth. He was almost out of spices, but being hot was enough. He filled bowls and handed them to the children. Emil attacked the food without even waiting. Sophie took her spoon without letting go of her doll. Anna just watched them. "You should eat too," Daniel said, handing her a bowl. Anna looked away. "I can eat," she said, but she didn't touch the food. It was in that moment that Daniel really noticed the woman for the first time. Her face was pale, but not harsh. She was tired, but not defeated. Right then, he realized this woman was more used to helping than asking for help. What kept her going wasn't hunger, but pride. And that pride shook something in Daniel, something that had been frozen for years. After the meal, the kids curled up on the rug. Daniel took a blanket from the chest and covered them. Anna still hadn't moved, but her eyes were full. "It's only temporary," Daniel said. "The roads are closed. Stay here until the storm passes." Anna nodded quietly. "Just a few days," he added. "Just a few days," Anna repeated, but her voice sounded like she was saying it not to Daniel, but to fate. That night, the storm got even stronger. But inside, with the old stove crackling, for the first time Daniel felt like he wasn't just hosting a guest, he was holding on to a meaning. And the woman, yes, Anna, just sitting there in the dark, not doing anything, just by being there, she had already started to change something inside that little cabin. Chapter 2. Broken roads, quiet steps when morning came. The storm still hadn't really stopped. Outside was smothered with whiteness pressed down by the wind. But inside the cabin, the air seemed a little softer. The silence wasn't threatening anymore. It was just cautious. That morning, Daniel woke up early, stoked the stove, and managed to spread a little warmth inside. When he went to the kitchen, Anna was already awake. She was still wearing her wet coat, but maybe now she wore it not to protect herself, but to draw a line. Daniel made a bowl of oatmeal. He added a pinch of salt and a handful of dried apple pieces. When he put it on the table, Anna whispered a thank you with her cracked lips. "How are the kids?" Daniel asked, his voice still rusty but gentle. "They're sleeping. This is the first time they've slept this deeply," Anna said. "Not their bodies. Maybe it's their fears that finally got tired." They didn't talk for a while longer. Then Daniel turned to the window and looked outside. "The roads are closed," he said. "No one can get here for at least 3 days." Anna nodded, but this news didn't make her nervous. It was like whoever she was running from had never left her alone, even when the roads were open. The kids started waking up one by one. Sophie was the first, rubbing her eyes with her hands before slowly sitting up. She still had her rag doll in her hand. Emil watched her, and then Finn looked at their mother as if checking the air between them. Silence was no longer a threat to them, but a habit. Daniel brought the kids a small wooden horse, something he had started carving years ago, but never finished. Finn looked it over and asked, "Did you make this?" "Yes," Daniel said, not blinking. "It looks real. Can I show it to Suddy?" "If you want, it can be yours," Daniel said. The smile that appeared on Finn's face at that moment reminded Daniel of a melody he had kept hidden inside. Like Elena's smile, sudden and bright. Toward noon that day, Daniel went out to chop wood. Emil followed him. He watched quietly, eyes fixed on the axe hitting the wood every time, not blinking. "Why do some logs break easily?" he asked. "Because they're cracked inside," Daniel said. "You can't tell from the outside, but inside they're broken." Emil nodded, not like he understood, just out of respect. Inside, Anna had quietly started tidying up the house. Her movements weren't intrusive or expectant. Her hands were just doing what they had always known, making order to survive. She hung the kids' wet clothes by the stove. Then she found one of Daniel's old shirts and started mending the torn spots. The thread in her hands worked like a prayer. Every stitch seemed to cover up a fear from the past. When Daniel returned, he saw what she had done, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded slightly. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know, but it felt good to feel like I belonged." Daniel paused at those words. To belong. It was a sentence that echoed around the cabin. No one had felt like they belonged in this house for years. Not even him. The kids had started acting less shy. They ate their food without spilling it and sat closer to the fire. When evening came, Daniel finished carving a little fox figure. When he handed it to Sophie, she took it without hesitation. Then, without even looking, just feeling, she said, "That was your wife, right?" Daniel's hand froze for a moment. "Elena," he whispered. "My mom said, sometimes people come back in something else." At that moment, Daniel felt something for the first time. Not a weight in his heart, but a stirring. Maybe light, but real. When evening darkness fell, the kids drifted off to sleep. Anna sat by the stove. She was quiet, but not tense. Daniel sat across from her. He put his hands on his knees. "The man you're running from. Could he come back?" Anna was silent for a long time. "Yes, because he doesn't like to leave things unfinished. Not himself, but everything he thinks he owns. And he sees you as something on that list." "Yes." Daniel stood up. "Then we need to make a plan." Anna looked up. "Plans. They usually don't work." "They might not," Daniel said. "But preparing is something else." That night, as Daniel was locking the window, he thought he saw a shadow move outside. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe not. But he wasn't alone anymore. And not being alone now wasn't a weakness in the face of danger. It was resistance. Chapter 3. After the shadows all night, the stove kept crackling. The children were in a deep sleep, their bodies finally surrendering to warmth and peace. But sleep didn't come to Daniel's eyes. Every few hours, he got up, checked the windows, tested the locks. There was a silence around the cabin, but it wasn't the silence of calm. It was the silence of something approaching. When morning came, the snow had stopped, but the sky was still gray. Sheets of ice hung from the edges of the roof, and when Daniel went outside to feed the cows, his feet sank into the snow. Inside, the children were having breakfast, and Anna was boiling hot water on the stove. It was like a normal morning, but something inside had changed in invisible restlessness, glances that looked away when they met. As soon as Daniel came back, he turned to Anna. "I felt something last night," he said. "There might be someone outside." Anna hesitated. The kettle in her hand froze midair. "He can't find us," she said. But her voice wasn't confident. It sounded like a hopeless belief. For someone who knows the way, this storm isn't an obstacle. "Do you know him? I mean, how far he'd go?" Anna lowered her head. "Randall always makes calculations. Where people are, when they'll return. He doesn't leave people behind because he forgets them, but because they're no longer useful to him. But we're still his property." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Then this house can't just be a shelter. It has to be a fortress." That day, Daniel and Finn were carrying wood behind the cabin when Finn suddenly asked, "Mr. Hartman, why are you alone?" Daniel looked into the boy's eyes. It was a heavy question for someone that young to ask. "I wasn't always alone. But sometimes, life leaves you walking on a road where everyone you loved has gone. My mom says that too. But maybe this time, no one leaves." Daniel couldn't answer, because the boy might be right, or painfully wrong. But the possibility, it reminded him again of that fragile thing called hope. In the afternoon, Anna wore Daniel's old shirt. It didn't quite fit her shoulders, but somehow it suited her. Sophie laid her doll Abigail next to the stove and was humming a song for her. Emile was quietly watching Theo's drawings, giving advice every now and then. Everything seemed to have calmed down. Just then, a sound came from far away. At first, only Daniel heard it. A hoofbeat, then a second, then three. It was like the earth was waking up. Daniel walked to the door, Anna right behind him. "No," Daniel said before opening the door. "Send the children inside." Anna rushed the children behind the stove. Finn seemed to understand. Theo's hands were trembling. Sophie held Abigail even tighter. Daniel opened the door. There were 3 riders. The man in front had a familiar silhouette. With his crooked smile and shiny but dirty-looking eyes, it was Randall. Next to him was someone in uniform, probably from local security. The third was just watching. "Daniel Hartman, right?" "Yes. I'm Randall, Anna's husband. And she's inside, isn't she?" Daniel's voice turned ice cold. "No one in this house belongs to anyone. If you have a complaint, go to town." Randall laughed. "I already did, and I have a ruling in my hand. These children are mine." Anna had come out now. She stood beside him. Her eyes were frozen, but her voice had the strength of steel. "You didn't help us. You abandoned us. To hunger, to cold, to death. I came to fix my mistakes. For the sake of these children's future." "Lies," said Daniel. "If you needed a family and not just an inheritance, you would have come long ago." Randall narrowed his eyes. "I have legal documents, and in a week we'll be in court. But until then, I came to take them." Anna's knees shook, but she didn't fall. "No," said Daniel. "You can't just take them from here." The police officer stepped forward. "We're here by court order, but we're looking for support to enforce it. If you resist us here, things will escalate." At that moment, something unexpected happened. There was another set of hoofbeats from behind. An old wagon coming from town. Mrs. Weber was in it, the elderly lady who owned the small shop in town. With her were the young vet, the old pastor, and the farmhand Ben. They all got down quietly. Mrs. Weber stepped forward. "Randall Byrne," she said, her voice cracked but determined. "We saw what kind of man you were years ago. The day you led Anna astray, the day you left. We knew. These children might be your blood, but they will never be your heart." Daniel held his breath. Randall was surprised. "This is not just a cabin anymore," Daniel said. "Now it's a place of witness. And your words alone won't be enough." Randall got back on his horse. "This isn't over," he said, spitting. "We know," Anna said. "But this time, we're not alone." That night there was silence in the cabin, but this time it was born from strength, not fear. As Daniel sat by the stove, Anna turned to him. "I don't know what will happen tomorrow. Tomorrow will come," Daniel said. "But this time, we'll be there too." Chapter 4. Silent Witnesses. 3 days later, when the day of the trial came, the sky was gray, but there was no snow. The road was still covered with mud and ice. While Daniel was getting the carriage ready, Anna fixed the children's clothes and brushed their hair. She wrapped each of them in wool scarves she had sewn herself. Maybe they were headed for the courthouse, but none of them were going there just for a case. This was the day for things left unsaid for years, for the unseen, for truths that had been pushed down. When they arrived at the town center, the front of the courthouse was crowded, but no one was noisy. Mrs. Weber, Doc Henning, the young farmer Ben, Pastor Lucas. They were all there. They didn't have signs in their hands, but there was testimony in their eyes. Even their silence was a stance. Randall had already gone into the building. He was wearing an expensive coat and had a lawyer from the city with him. The hearing was in a small room, but the crowd was big. People didn't fit into the benches. They even filled the window sills. The judge was an old, neutral-looking man, but his eyes were sharp and patient. Today, we will hear both sides regarding who should have legal custody of the children, he said. If you have witnesses or evidence, present them. Randall spoke first. He was prepared. Along with his lawyer, he used sentences full of words like the sanctity of family unity, biological bonds, financial opportunities for the children's future. It was so smooth, so polished. It was almost believable, but not a single eye in the room believed those words. Because everyone could see that Randall's reason for coming was not family, but control. Then it was Anna's turn. Her feet shook a little as she walked to the stand, but her voice didn't. I walked with these children for 3 days, she said. Our feet were covered in blood. They cried from hunger, but stayed quiet, because they had learned the value of staying together. We grew up not on a pillow, but on courage. She swallowed, her eyes going to her children. Yes, I gave birth to them, but Daniel kept them alive. When Daniel's name echoed in the room, there was some movement. The man who had sat quietly until then slowly stood up. He walked to the stand. His thick, rough voice was clearly heard in the room. I lost my wife 2 years ago. Since then, I've barely spoken. But these kids, for the first time, they gave me something. A reason, a morning, a voice. I don't know blood ties, but I know heart ties. Because I chose these children. And choosing isn't just about giving birth. It's about knowing how to stay. The judge nodded slightly. And you? If you have no official legal bond, why are you here? Daniel didn't answer right away. Then, he took a small carved wooden piece out of his inner jacket pocket. This is a butterfly I made for Sophie. It represents change. This house, this woman, these children, they're all change itself. And I'm here to be a part of that change. Sophie got up from the audience rows. She went to her mother to see the wooden butterfly. She didn't say anything, but with her little hands, she held Daniel's hand. At that moment, there wasn't a sound in the room. The judge was silent. Then he wrote something in his notebook with his pen. The court recognizes Randall Burns' biological bond. However, considering that this bond is not enough and that the best interests of the children must be protected, everyone held their breath. Therefore, full custody of the children is awarded to their mother, Anna Kramer, and Daniel Hartman is recognized as the de facto caregiver of the children in this household. The room didn't suddenly lose its silence. Nobody clapped, nobody jumped up, but the tears in people's eyes were a sign of a relief mixed with exhaustion. There was an expression on Daniel's face, not a full smile, not emptiness. He just looked like someone who had found his place. After the hearing, everyone went outside. The sun was partly visible behind the clouds. Rachel, no, not Anna, anymore hugged her children. Then she turned to Daniel. Is it over? She asked. Daniel looked up at the sky. No, but for the first time, it feels possible to start again. Chapter 5. A quiet offer in the first week after the trial. Everything in the town and around it seemed to go back to normal, but life in Daniel's cabin was flowing in a completely different way now. In the past, you could only hear the howling of the wind and the creaking of the wooden roof, but now, every morning, the children's laughter echoed, and the murmurs of stories told by the stove filled the air. Anna woke up early in the mornings, kneaded bread dough, sprinkled seeds along the edge of the garden, and taught Sophie how to braid hair, showed Theo how to mend cloth. Daniel chopped wood with Finn, made new toys in the woodshop, and put up a small fence in front of the house. This time, everything was being done together. There was an extra pair of hands in every task, sometimes small, sometimes big, but never alone. One morning, Anna was standing by the window, looking outside, when Daniel came in. He was wearing one of his old jackets again, his hands covered in sawdust. What are you thinking about? He asked. Anna turned and smiled softly. I think I'm finally learning not to be afraid. This house, it feels like a kind of peace I never even dared to dream about for years. Daniel sat down on a chair. I got used to silence a long time ago, but your silence is different from mine. Yours is full of life. Just then, Theo burst in. Sam, Sam, that thing, the butterfly. Suddy put it on top of the stove, but it can't fly. It's about to fall. Daniel laughed and got up. It's not supposed to fly. That's its place. But that night, there was something else in the silence. Not a storm, not fear, just a waiting. After the children fell asleep, Anna quietly came over to Daniel. She found him in the kitchen, sharpening the tip of an old wooden spoon. I have to ask you something, Anna said. Without looking up, Daniel said, Ask. I never thought you didn't want us here, but I also don't know if you want to keep going with us. Those words stopped Daniel. He looked up from the spoon and at Anna's face. I got used to being alone, but you and the kids, you turned this place from just a silent house into a home. Life came back, Anna. And yes, I want that, but I don't want to be a burden to you. Anna nodded gently. This isn't being a burden. This is sharing. Then Daniel took a small box out of his desk drawer. There were no decorations on it, just a plain, unvarnished box. I made this before the trial, he said. He opened the box. Inside, there was a small wooden ring. This isn't a marriage proposal. Not yet, but it's a sign that I want you to stay here. Anna looked at the ring. She didn't reach for the box right away. First, she looked into Daniel's eyes. You don't want to own me. You want to be by my side. Daniel lowered his head. That's exactly it. Anna closed the box, but didn't take the ring. Instead, she held Daniel's hand. I'm staying here. Maybe one day I'll wear the ring too. But for now, greeting the mornings together is enough. That night, for the first time, Daniel took a deep breath inside the cabin. There was no fear, no uncertainty. There was only a decision. A quiet but certain decision. And the peace inside was starting to overcome the cold outside. The next morning, the true step of spring was felt. The children walked barefoot on the grass. Sophie, holding the butterfly, counted the flowers between the fences while Finn helped carry wood. Theo watched as Daniel started carving a new owl. Anna was bent over the little garden slope, checking the flower sprouts. In her hand was a cover made from Daniel's old shirt. On her face was a subtle smile, and for the first time, her eyes held plans instead of worries. Daniel watched her and whispered to himself, This is not my house anymore. It's our house. But deep down, they both knew this peace wasn't easily won, and it might take more to make it last. Because sometimes shadows came back not with darkness, but with documents, stamps, and rules. And storms weren't just about winter. Chapter 6. Written on the heart when spring truly arrived. Green shoots started coming up from under the snow. The mud in front of the cabin was flattened by the children's bare feet. Sophie hung her doll Abigail on the clothesline so she could see the sun, while Finn and Theo went exploring for bird nests behind the fence. Daniel was in the workshop, carving something new. It was a cradle. Small, simple, but sturdy. Everything seemed to be slowly falling into place. Anna checked the sprouts in the garden every morning, hung laundry with the children, and in the evenings, she shared the silence with Daniel, shoulder to shoulder. But as much as Daniel felt peace, there was something that kept him on edge. Randall could come back. And if he did, he might be stronger, more prepared, more dangerous. That fear came true one morning, in a cloud of dust. Randall arrived with 2 men. Their horses were freshly groomed, their clothes made of city fabric, their shoes free of mud. It showed that this man came not with regret, but with a plan. One of the men was carrying a bag with the governor's seal. The other was pulling out official papers from his jacket pocket. Anna brought the children inside. Daniel stood on the porch, silent but unshakable. Randall got down and spoke directly. I tried to be polite, but you refused. This time I'm here with the judge, with a real court order. These kids are mine, and I've come to take them. The man dressed as a judge pulled out the document. According to this official order, temporary custody of the children is granted to the biological father, Randall Byrne. You have the right to appeal, but the order is effective as of today. Anna's knees went weak, but she didn't collapse. The children were looking out in fear. Daniel took a step forward. I'll appeal this decision. This man abandoned these kids for years. Now he doesn't want to love, he wants to own. I won't allow that. Randall smirked. Who are you? You have no blood tie, no marriage certificate. You have nothing. Daniel answered without narrowing his eyes. That's true, but I have something else. Right then, Daniel pulled out another document from his pocket. This is a power of attorney signed by the children's mother. It grants me the right to care for them legally. Plus, here are statements from the town doctor, the teacher, and the neighbors. And yes, also my official appeal to the court. Randall was caught off guard. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't accounted for his plans to fall apart so quickly or to meet this much resistance. Daniel kept going without stepping back. This isn't just a matter of blood. This is a matter of conscience. And the harm you did to these kids can't be measured by words. People from the town were starting to gather in the back. Mrs. Weber, Doc Henning, Ben, and the others. No one was shouting slogans. No one was yelling. But they stood quietly behind Daniel and Anna. Sometimes justice isn't made with fists, but by taking a stand. And today, everyone was taking a stand. The judge-like man closed his file. In light of these documents, we are suspending enforcement. The case will be taken to court. Until then, the children may remain here. Randall clenched his teeth. This isn't over. I'll come for every one of you. Anna stepped forward. Her voice didn't tremble. We're a family now. Your words don't matter here. Because here, there's a new order written with love. Randall had to leave. This time, he was alone. He left only dust behind, but this time, what rose into the air wasn't fear, but relief. That evening, when they returned to the cabin, the children hugged Daniel one by one. Finn climbed on his shoulder. Theo walked quietly beside him. Sophie put Abigail in his hands and said, "She's yours now, because you belong to us too." Daniel turned to Anna, his eyes filled with tears. I just opened the door to you." Anna smiled. But when we came in, that door opened to our home. And that night, Anna took out the little wooden box from the drawer. She quietly handed it to Daniel. "I want to wear the ring now," she said, "because this is not just hope anymore. This is us." Daniel helped her put on the ring. There were no church bells, no ceremony. But as the stove crackled inside, the little cradle swayed gently with the breeze from the window. Outside, the last snow of spring was melting into the ground. Inside, there was not just warmth now, but belonging. This home was born from a man's loneliness, a woman's courage, and the determination of 3 little hearts to learn again. And if the walls of that cabin could talk, they would say, "Real family begins when you choose to stay together." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss what happens next.